On this episode of Motorhead Garage, if your paint has dimples, this product makes water sanding simple. But first, Sam and Dave quiet this truck's brakes with some of the best that AMS makes.
What do you think about that?
I think these are cobbled up.
I think we got some issues there.
That's a lot of noise right there.
There's no question about it. Hey, folks, welcome to Motorhead Garage. Well, folks, you can see one thing that Sam and I are doing here, working on the front brake of this Dodge. And it doesn't look too bad, but I'll tell you what, it's been making a lot of noise. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of clean it up, see if we can eliminate some of the noise, put on a new set of pads, which will help a lot, and that should get this thing on the road. Now, here's what we're going to put on it. This is the ultra quiet brakes from AMS Automotive. Now this is what the package would look like. Here's what we're going to put on it. These are the pads right here. Now these are OE specs. In fact, they meet and exceed it. A couple things I want to show you on a set of brake pads that you might not be aware of. If you look right here real closely, you can see there's a groove in here. That helps to quiet a brake pad, but if you look on the edge, they're tapered just a little bit on each side. What happens when these pads go up against the rotor? This allows the pad to gradually get into the rotor, and it helps eliminate any vibration which causes squeal. Now, just the vibration is what goes on. They're going to vibrate anyway, but if they vibrate in a harmonic that you can hear, that's what gets irritating, so you want to clean that out. These are bonded pads, which means the friction material is bonded to the backing plate, and here on the backing plate, you can see there is a little pad on that. That, again, helps absorb any vibration. It cushions it against the pistons in the caliper. This way, you always have a nice, quiet brake. So we're going to put these on, but before we do that, let me turn this around. You don't want to be touching the pad any more than you need to, especially on the surface. But
I'm going to need these.
Yeah, absolutely, you're going to need this. This is what's important about this. Coming with your kit, you get the hardware, and this is something you do not want to skimp on. No. New hardware will make all the difference in the world.
Right. This is what prevents chatter, shaking, vibration, noise. And of course, buy a quality set of brake pads like these ultra quiets, and you'll get the hardware with it.
Now, take a look at this, Sam. These things have been through a lot of heat cycles. They get stiff, they get brittle, they don't absorb vibration.
None of that. Look at how bent up it is. That's what it's supposed to look like. Somebody bent them all up, and you can see every place where you see rust or shiny spot, that's the metal on the pad, backing plate, rubbing against it. No high temp brake lube, they're going to drag.
And that's another key issue too. Let me have this. Right. And that is high-tech brake lube.
It's not, you don't want to use regular wheel bearing grease or your white lube. These things are going to flash over 500 degrees. Now this is a 3/4 ton truck. It's got big brakes on it. Somebody put pads in this, but that's all they did. You don't want to make that mistake at home. This works at 3,000 degrees. And it's also compatible with all the DPM and the nitrile rubber that you have on the boots where the caliper slides. And of course, it's ideal for ceramic brakes because they operate a little hotter temperature. That's why they don't dust as much, and they're good and quiet.
A couple of things you want to do once you get the wheel off. We got the caliper off already, but we want to go ahead and start cleaning this up. And the other thing we want to do is we want to check the rotor runout on this thing. Now, the rotor itself looks like it's almost brand new, so it should be thick enough. I don't think that's an issue. But you never know about runout, and that can be caused from improper torquing of the wheel. And if that happens, then you get this situation. And again, you get pedal vibration.
Right. And of course, when you go to get a set of brake pads and you're going to inspect everything, look the whole car over. Look at the ball joints, look at the control arm bushings. We found this thing here has got another little noise, and that's a worn front U-joint, so that's going to have to be repaired. But we'll fix his brakes up here. Go ahead and let's watch this thing turn.
Okay.
I did it already. It was less than a 2,000th run out.
Yeah, turn it slowly, and we're getting, go ahead, a little bit more, yep. We're only getting about 1.5, about 2, so we're in good shape on that. So the run out is okay, but this is important to do before you go ahead and put on a new set of pads.
Yeah, and you can see these pads everywhere that the new pads were put on. There's rust, they were dry. We'll clean this up, brake clean, put some lube on it, and we'll be in great shape.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and show you how to do all that, so stay with us.
This edition of Motorhead Garage, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology. Original Parts Group, the world's largest source for GMA body parts and accessories. Flowmaster, the exhaust technology company. And by B&M Racing and Performance, quality performance products that work.
Hey, welcome back to Motorhead Garage. Well, you can see Sam and I are busy here with our brake job. You know, we're taking our time on this and showing you a lot of detail as to what it takes to actually do a real good brake pad change. So there's a lot of things you want to check and detail work you want to do on it. And right. Sam, one of the things you've been doing here is lubricating some of the hardware.
Yeah, when you look at this hardware, the way it works, it clips onto the caliper mount. So you want to put a little thin film of our brake lube in there. Not a lot, you don't want to glob it on there. And then the pad's going to ride up against this, or in the case of the top one, that's going to ride up against the pad. If you look at the old pads, rusty there, rusty everywhere, they never put any lube on them. Now those pads aren't really worn that much, but they've been making a lot of noise. Using these ultra quiet pads, again, they're bonded, they're designed to be quiet. They do have the wear indicator. When the pad starts to get thin, this little metal bracket right here will touch the rotor and emit a high-pitched squeal. You'll know it's time for pads, but you should do an inspection along the way. Again, right in here and right in here, you want some brake lube. When you put that on, a lot of this brake lube is black. This particular product seems to be white, but it's not white lube. This is a high-temp silicone brake lube. And again, if you use the right grease, it's going to stay, and brakes are dirty. So stop and wash your hands every now and then, and you have a better job. Do not touch the friction material. Take the pad, and the pad's going to lay in here like this, okay? These are a little tricky. This one, you got to lift this tab up a little bit to get the pad in, and you want to look and make sure it's touching right against flat, and you see how nice it'll move. And these things here are going to prevent chatter, which your ears hear as a squeal. So we're going to make this guy's brake real quiet.
Okay, well, before we do that, let's take that back off, because one of the things you want to do is, you may have touched this, and there's some spots on here.
Oh, absolutely.
We want to clean this rotor first. Brake clean is a good thing to use. What you do is you'll just spray it around your rotor, like so, and you got some of the shop towels there, Sammy?
There you go.
All right. You don't have to use a lot, but spray it around there, and then wipe it off.
Another thing, the caliper's going to slide. It moves back and forth. You got these bolts that go through here. Here's where your rubber pieces are. This all has to be lubed. Again, it was dry. A little bit on the face of the pistons. When you're ready to put that back on, once the pads are in. And the deal is, make sure the caliper's good and clean and grease good. Any place where you see metal-to-metal contact, you want to put grease on it. Are you making a career out of this?
Well, you can see what you have on that rotor. It's always nice to have a nice, clean rotor before you put your pads back on it.
Nothing on the pad. You saw that.
Okay.
My hands never left the table. There we go. I'll put a little bit of lube on this. Set the other pad in. Now we've checked it for run out. We know we don't have any run out. The rotor's new, so the thickness is good. Well, those are all the things you want to check. And don't forget, a little bit of lube on your
studs
here for the lug nuts before it goes in. That's always good insurance against rusty lug nuts. Got a little bit of grease in here. Again, you don't want too much. You want enough on there to prevent it. And these brake pads, by the way, these are ultra quiet brake pads. This is a real premium brake pad from AMS Automotive. And you can see the quality. Even the backing plate is coated. That way it won't rust. You look at these cheap pads that somebody got at a department store, they're already starting to rust because they don't have a coating on them. You want to look for those little details that'll make your brake job last a lot longer. I pop this in here.
While you're doing that, I'm going to go get the caliper already.
All right. Bingo.
Okay, well, we got the caliper all prepped, ready to go. We got it lubed. So let's go ahead and let's get this on here, Sammy.
Okay. Also, the bolts, again, that slide to the back of the caliper. The caliper's going to move on them. You want some brake lube on them. You got this?
Okay.
Right into that boot. In any place that caliper's got metal touching metal, a little bit of high-temp brake lube. Again, the caliper, you know, it needs to float in and out. Remember, there's no return springs on disc brakes. The only thing that brings the piston back and lets the caliper or the pad come away from the rotor is the O-ring around the piston. It's an annular square O-ring, and it twists out and twists in. So if it's dragging, your pads are going to drag. It's going to overheat, prematurely ruin your brakes.
All right, man, we'll go ahead and finish this up. Meantime, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us because we got a lot more coming back here on Motorhead Garage.
I think this is it here, right, buddy? Yeah.
Hey, on this week's Industry Update, we're featuring products from CRC Industries. And Sam, you know, one of the problems we have with new cars now that have the gas direct injected engines, they get to run a little rough after about 5,000 to 10,000 miles. Why?
That's right. They build up a lot of carbon, particularly on the intake valve, because you no longer have the injector in the intake manifold washing that valve. Carbon's up, you lose power and performance and fuel economy.
Exactly, and that's what CRC Industries brought out. This is called their GDI IVD intake valve cleaner, and it's 150 times more powerful than the additives you find in your gasoline.
That's right. It's easy to use. You put this on the dry side, you have the perma-straw, go behind the mass airflow sensor, put this into the intake system, 30-second blast with the engine at 2,000 RPM, lifts the carbon off the backside and the face of the intake valves, helps to clean up all the combustion chamber, restore your power and performance.
And this is not only good for direct injected engines, but also regular gasoline engines as well. Restores power, increases torque. If you want more information, all you have to do is go to their website.
Motorhead Garage, presented by ARP, coming to you from Borla Commerce Park.
Welcome back to Motorhead Garage. You know, when you're working with paint, you're refinishing, there's a lot of things like water sanding, buffing, a lot of things you have to do to make it right. Like this Cadillac, this hood was just refinished. Now this car spent most of its life outside. There's a lot of flaws in the paint, but the hood was beyond. So it's been shot, got a lot of clear on it, and you can see it's got a lot of orange peel. So before you go grab your sander and your buffer and so on, and spend a lot of time doing it, particularly if you're doing one of these nice custom jobs where you're laying a lot of clear down and water sanding between coats, here's an easy way to save you a lot of paper, a lot of time, and a lot of labor. Dave, show them what we got, pal.
Okay, Sam, folks, we got Rod Carpenter here with Quick Cut Sander. Now, here's what he's got. This is going to take a lot of time out of getting your paint ready to go and polishing it out, wet sanding, the whole thing. Show us what you have here, Rod. Now, this is something I noticed right off the bat. Tell me about this.
Well, what we have is a regular standard DA sander, 2.5 millimeter, and we put a water system on here through machine parts and convert it to a wet sander.
Okay, so this is a little bit special on that, and with this is going to allow you to wet sand in about half the time it would normally take, right?
Or less.
Or less. And you have everything to go with it, right? You got different levels of sanding here?
We have to start with on this car, we're going to use this firm black pad.
Okay, that's nice and firm.
And that's good and dense. And then we have the intermediate red pad, which is not quite as dense. And we also have a memory foam pad, which takes the shape of whatever car that you're going to sand.
Okay, and then you also have the various levels of sanding disc as well.
Yes, there's no need to go real coarse at all.
Yeah.
It just makes more.
You're better off to go lighter than heavier, right?
A lot lighter if you can.
Right. Okay, well, you got the equipment right here. Now, you also have a pump that goes with this with a little filter on there so you don't get any debris coming up through your sander here, right?
Correct. It's a stainless steel 40 micron filter, so you will never get any debris that should possibly get in the reservoir up through the sander onto the paint being sanded.
All right, well, Sam is all set up over here. Let's see how well he can do it.
All right, setting up our quick cut sander. Here's our pump with our filter assembly. We're going to set it in a bucket of water here. Now, you want to add a couple drops of detergent. Acts as a lubricant, breaks the surface tension, lets it all flow good. And of course, we got our air line hooked up, and then we're going to plug the pump in. We don't plug the pump in until it's in the water. Use a grounded cord, and of course, this goes to a GFCI protected outlet, and we're in pretty good shape. Now, what I've decided, looking at the finish in this Cadillac, I think we're going to start with like a 2000 grit sandpaper. That's not aggressive at all. It's actually a pretty smooth paper. We're all hooked up. We're pretty much ready to go here. What do you think of my selection?
Well, Sam, I think you did a very good job, a very good selection using the firm black pad, which will allow it to be cut through all of the orange peel and make it nice, show car flat.
Okay, we can go from 2,000 down to 3,000, down to 4,000 if we want,
We
right?
can go all the way up to 4,000 grit, and if you did have a lot more orange peel than this, you could potentially go to 1,500 grit if needed, but this is a perfect fit.
Let's water sand.
So
Let's see if
we'll
it can
just
work.
sand away here.
Okay. Get you all set.
You see the water coming out from that distribution ring?
Mm-hmm.
Then we adjust that down to where you get just the amount of water you need. You don't have to overflood the place.
Okay.
Wet it down and start sanding. Simple as that. Just stay away from the edge. Notice how milky that's already gotten. And that's the clear. It's cutting that clear perfectly flat. Would you hand me that squeegee disc over there? And I'm going to sand a little bit here and show Sam how easy it is to do. And then I'm going to turn it over.
Let me try this.
And here he is, Sam.
So this
Put
is
this in your left hand and then squeegee as you go.
This is a great way to water sand. By the way, I'm not putting any pressure, and stay away from the edges. I can see that. That's a great way to see where you're making progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't even have to stop the sander to squeegee. And this, notice for this little bit on the hood, it's only taken about less than a minute.
Absolutely. Take your time, let the sander do the work. This is, again, the easiest water sanding I've done. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish up this hood and buff it.
Welcome to this week's Steel Spotlight. And yes, I am smelling this car because this is a 1952 Chevy Styleline, and it smells new. I mean, like a new car, believe it or not. I'm with John, who built this car, and John, everything's new about this old car.
Yeah, everything on this vehicle from frame off is completely brand new on this vehicle.
You know, the thing I noticed too is it still has that old school look. This is what this industry is all about. This is what we love at Steel, is the classics.
Yeah, it was this car's complete stock restoration.
Including the engine?
Yes, the engine is a 235 cubic inch. It's up because it has a power glide in it.
This is one of your customers, but it's also a family car for that customer, right?
Yes, it is. It's customer's family heirloom. He was actually the first person to drive the car. He was 16 in 1952, and he was the first person to drive the car off the dealer's lot, and he remembers the car had 0.6 of a mile on it.
So he's not going to mind that I'm walking around his car sniffing his car, is he?
Absolutely not. He did the same thing on Friday when we finished putting the interior in it.
Because seriously, ladies, if you could have perfume that smelled like the inside of this car, we'd be very happy.
This edition of Motorhead Garage, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology. Hurst, America's #1 shifter. Steel Rubber, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. And by Gray Area Technologies, in it for the long run.
Welcome back to Motorhead Garage. Well, you can see Rod, he's now rubbing out with a foam pad where we water sanded. Now this is the first cut using some pretty aggressive compound. Now a lot of you guys are good with a wool pad, but if you're not good with a wool pad, you know it generates a lot of heat. As soon as you clip an edge, you take the paint off it. This is a dense white foam pad, much more forgiving. Is it cutting pretty good?
Looks like it's cutting fine.
Yeah. So again, with our first step of compound, Rod's rubbing this all out. Then, of course, what we'll do is we'll wipe it down. We'll go back with the machine glaze and a finishing pad, bring the luster up, and all of the orange peel and a lot of the solvent pops and all of the other things that were on this paint will be gone. You'll be real surprised. You know, this looks pretty good, Rod. Nice and smooth. Got rid of most of the orange peel, so now it's been wet sanded, real easy. And, of course, we've gone through with the aggressive pad and the aggressive compound. Now it's a finishing pad, nice soft one.
A nice soft finishing pad.
Yep. And then, of course, we've got machine glaze. I'll put a little bit of this on. Is that enough for you?
Oh, that's plenty.
All right, so I'm going to let him go ahead and we'll polish this out and it's going to make it look like new. You can see how nice this looks, I'll tell you what. And there's a few little scratches and pops in it, but you know, we did this with 2,000 sandpaper.
That's correct.
You could go to 1,500, but you know, start with the least aggressive. You can always go back and take off more. And the quick cut sander did a great job, made it real easy to water sand it. And then you go through with your 2 different pads. And again, if you guys are expert with a wool pad, it'll do a nice job, but these I like because they don't scare me. And we get all this here done, it looks terrific. Maybe we get Davey to rub the rest of this out. What do you say?
That's a good idea.
Are you game, Dave?
Yeah, right. Well, Rod and Sam have done a great job over there, but you know, folks, you don't have to always do that, especially you got a car that you just want to clean up and you want to put a nice wax and polish job on it. All you have to do is clean the paint first. And what Rod has brought along here, this is called the claper. And you've heard about claying the paint. Well, what that does, that takes off any of the surface dirt or any little imperfections you have on there, so the paint is nice and clean before you put on your wax and polish. Well, this is what he's brought here. And you can see this is a clay pad, but it sticks right here onto this nice holder rather than a block or a brick that you have to use. Makes it a lot easier to hold it. And what you have here is your clay guide. You spray this on the paint and then rub this around there and then wipe it off. And once you do that, you can feel a big difference between what you just did and the old paint. Get all that dirt off and put on your nice wax and polish, and it's going to look great. Anyway, we want to thank Rod for stopping by, bringing all these great products with us. We've run out of time. We'll see you again next time here at Motorhead Garage.